Hey Jim, welcome to the show.
Bola, it's great to be here with you, and I look forward to having a conversation. And my goal is to bring some value to you and to your audience. Thank you for having me.
It's awesome. Welcome to the show. Often we focus on leadership. If
Mm.
if things are going well, we say we give credit to the leader. When things don't go right, also we blame the leader. But I want to hear from you. Why are you focusing on the topic of followership? Why is that important, Jim?
Yes, Bola, thank you again for having me. And the question is a great question because it's the essence of why I wrote the book. So much time, so much energy, so much money is spent on equipping people to be great leaders. Countless volumes have been written, tons of media exposure on leadership, and we tell kids, children here especially in America, you got to be the leader. You got to take charge. You got to be the captain, right? And what happens is I feel is over time, especially in America culture, we have diminished the importance of being a great follower. It's almost a secondary role. It is subservient oftentimes. That's the perspective. And what I said was, everything rises and falls on leadership. That's a quote from John Maxwell himself. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And I believe that to be true. But I also believe that great leadership rises and falls on effective followers. In other words, if the leader is out there trying to put forth a vision and he says or she says, my people just don't buy in. They're not helping. What am I doing wrong? That therein lies the problem. So, in order for the leader to be effective, we have to have people carrying out and implementing the vision and the mission and the strategy. And if we don't have effective followers doing that, the leadership fails.
No, that's correct. And I hear you saying effective followership. So, how would you define effective followership, or what does it take to
Mm.
become an effective follower?
Yeah. So I've outlined 9 different steps that I think are essential to being an effective follower. I start with adopting a servant mindset. We often hear servant leadership, and there's multiple volumes that have been written about that. What does that mean? But a servant mindset for a follower means embracing that. It means contributing to the greater good of the team with humility, i.e., humble influence, humility, dedication, selflessness instead of selfishness, focus on serving the leader, supporting the team that you're working with, not worrying about who gets the credit, but ultimately achieving the mission. That's the servant mindset that I refer to. Another point is understanding that mission. Okay, so when a leader casts a vision, which we all would, I think, agree that vision casting is an important part of leadership. Here's
Mhm.
where we're going. Here's why we're going. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. But if you take the time as a follower to fully understand and align yourself, maybe not with the entire vision, okay, but find something that you can grasp onto to say, yes, I buy into that piece. And I think what will happen is over time, you will find yourself being more and more engaged in the process, having more buy-in. But if you could just find that one thing to understand the mission and understand how that connects with you, your goals, your dreams, your vision for your life, right?
Uh,
I think that's another thing. And also, there's several key traits that I identify in humble influence, Bola, and I'll share a couple of those for you. Ideally, it starts with humility, the idea of serving without seeking the spotlight. All
mm.
right. And so a followership role can be tough, especially for an aspiring leader, because I think it's human nature to want to have the spotlight. But
Uh,
there's a lot of us, myself included, when I was coming up through the ranks, I didn't necessarily want the spotlight, but I wanted to make sure that I was serving and I was doing so to make sure that I was aligned with that leader that I was serving. I also think a key trait for an effective follower is curiosity.
Hmm.
Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. But I think that curiosity, asking questions, exploring the other person's perspective, maybe thinking about how can I be open to learning something new, right?
Right.
Being curious is a key trait. Courage, how many times do we sit in meetings where somebody will say, "Well, I could have told you that wasn't going to work."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You've heard it. I've said it. I could have
Absolutely.
told you.
Yeah.
But what if we had the courage to offer the
Pick up. Yeah. Hmm.
constructive feedback, challenge the decisions respectfully,
Hmm.
right? With respect as needed. And then I think, other key traits that are important, things like loyalty, proactivity, observation, seeing what's going on around you can be a very, very important trait. So there's a couple of things that I could share with your audience today. And of course, we can talk about this for hours, but those are some of the key parts.
No, that's good. And that's you mentioned humility, loyalty, curiosity.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how can professionals, people listening to you right now, how can they balance being a great follower
Hmm.
while still demonstrating that leadership potential? Because we need both. So how can we
Yeah.
balance this too?
Well, Bola, I love the framework of the question, and I would start by saying that I believe, and this is my humble opinion, but I believe all great leaders were at one point a great follower.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and so I think it's essential. We think about empathy, we think about consideration, we think about respect. Put yourself in that role and say, okay, I am in this position. Maybe I'm middle management. Maybe I'm a rank and file employee. Maybe I am new to the team and I'm just trying to find my way. Get plugged in, find ways to add value because the faster you can do that and understand how to be an effective follower, you're going to expedite the process of leadership because leading from the middle is leading.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have the title, even if you don't have the corner office, even if you don't have the big salary, you can still lead where you are as a follower.
That's right. So now you've said it that the team rise and fall with the leader. So how can the leader create an environment that value and develop good and effective followership?
Yeah. Well, I have to ask myself this question because I lead a team of 14 people here in my small company. I've led big teams, I've led small teams, I've led myself. So I think that, leadership starts with the self. Do you have discipline? Do you have integrity? Do you have uh, things like empathy and traits that great leaders have, along with vision? And maybe you're thinking about business strategy, or maybe it's leading a team of a certain department, okay, that's very specialized. Those are all great things. But as you're trying to equip your team, I think, and this is just my opinion, we've got to invest in that and encourage people to say, you're not a leader yet. You have the potential to be, but I need you to be an effective follower. And maybe you share some of these traits that I just talked about. Maybe you talk about, understanding purpose, understanding their why. Uh, Maybe you're thinking about focusing on the collective success of the team or the mission that you're on. Maybe you're talking about responsibility and taking responsibility, right? So
Yeah.
equipping and raising up these great followers is an intentional act in itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think personally, we've got to, we talk about the investment of time and people. People are our greatest asset most times in most companies. But how are we equipping them? How are we training them up? What kind of resources are we providing for them? My book is just, Humble Influence is just one resource out there. There's not a lot, to be honest with you. One of the reasons I started on this journey 17 and a half years ago to write this book was that there wasn't a lot being written and talked about from how to be a follower.
Yeah. So I hear you say we must also lead ourselves. And
Mhm.
me, that resonates very clearly with me. Each
Mhm.
year, I set goals. In terms of personal and professional development.
Mhm.
I set goals about books that I want to read, or maybe a course that I need to take. So, to you, what are some ways that people can start leading themselves so that they can, transition from this being an effective follower to becoming an effective leader?
Well, for myself, I could speak to myself and how I approach leading myself.
Mhm.
First and foremost, it starts with my purpose and my why.
Mhm.
Once I understand that, I talk about my purpose and why of my marriage, and my purpose and my why and my faith. And
Mhm.
then I drill down into my spiritual walk. I look at my physical fitness walk, my nutrition walk, and all, my business walk, my friendship walk, my family walk, and all the things that I'm doing in my life. And I have specific and intentional, very, very measurable goals that I set every year. The
Yeah.
first part of the year, I set these goals, and I have a weekly check-in with my wife Rebecca, and we talk about these things every single week. How are we doing? Well, I've let myself down over here. I dropped the ball, and she's my accountability, aspect or partner, and we'll have these discussions. So leading yourself begins with having a purpose and what you're trying to do. And for me personally, it's having, God at the center of everything. I'm a person of faith, and I try to say, like, in my mind, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is thank God for the air in my lungs. I woke up. I get to do this again today. And my mission is to serve people. I have a simple motto. It says, love God,
Mhm.
value life,
Mhm.
serve people. Those three things: love God, value life, serve people. So I enjoy my life. I can't wait to get started each day, And whether that's with my work or going on an adventure here in West Virginia or just spending time with friends and family, I value life. And then the third part is serving people. So how can I add value? And so those types of things, when I have that personal mission statement and it's very clear, and I've had this for years, and I'm focusing every day on trying to do those things. Now, granted, I am a human and I goof up a lot, and I don't achieve my purpose every day. And there's some days where I feel sorry for myself, and I'm like, wow, I'm almost embarrassed that I feel that way. But the truth of the matter is you have to have that. And some days you're going to crush it, and some days you're not. But I think leading yourself begins with that.
I love everything that you've just said. I like the fact that you are bringing in the faith perspective. I'm a man of faith myself, and
Yes, sir. Amen.
so because of this, and people often shy away from speaking about faith.
Mm,
But I know that our faith plays a big role in terms of being an effective followership. Because, for
yes.
example, our faith teaches us humility, which
Mm,
is one of the core tenets or core elements of being a good follower. So I want to ask you, what role has your faith played in shaping you to becoming who you are today, Jim?
mm. Wow. Wow, that's a deep question. I would say it's everything, honestly. Here at Interaction Media, my company, Bolda, I view my business as my ministry. Now that may seem weird to somebody. Like, how can business be ministry? Well, I'm not in Honduras or Guatemala with a mission team, but I'm here in Morgantown, West by God, Virginia, and I'm using my talents and abilities to bless people in the marketplace with marketing and advertising and video and all the storytelling and all that. And I tried to do the same with my team. I try to equip them every day to be the best that they can actually be at their craft so that we can go out and bless people and help them, serve them, like I said. So it's everything. The other thing I would ask, kind of mention to you on this is, if it's okay, and this is just a thought that just hit my head, in the Bible, the Holy Bible,
Absolutely. Very okay.
Simon Peter and Andrew were fishermen.
Yes.
I personally, that's my hobby. That's my pastime. I love to fly fish, bass fish. I have a bass boat. I'm a person of the water. I love being on the water. Well, these guys, Simon Peter and Andrew, two brothers, they had heard of John the Baptist, and they heard of this Jesus guy. And all of a sudden, they're coming off the water. I imagine it was probably a long night of fishing and they didn't probably catch very much. I've been there.
Mhm.
And this guy, Jesus, walks up and says, lay down your nets, come follow me. He says, come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And when I think about that little piece of scripture in the Holy Bible, it reminds me that those two guys followed. They laid down their nets and they followed, and that started a whole movement that thousands of years later we're sitting here talking about.
Uh,
That's pretty powerful. If you want to create a movement, you got to have followers. And those two guys, they were the first ones to lay down their nets and go follow.
no, that's so good. Now, your book, Humble Influence.
Mhm.
What are some takeaways from your book that you want to share with my listeners so that they can look forward to getting your book and reading it?
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think the biggest thing, Bola, is that I want to make sure that whoever reads the book find inspiration where they're at in their career path, in their journey. Maybe it's an entrepreneurial journey. Maybe it's starting out just out of high school in their first job. How can they find fulfillment, satisfaction, make an impact, have influence in the role that they're in, whether it's in a church, it's a business, it's a nonprofit organization, it's a startup, it's a family business, whatever, wherever they're at. I would love for them to read the book and get some inspiration and say, you know what, I can make a difference right here in the middle where it's messy, and I could have an impact on the community and the people around me.
Yeah, that's good. Now, in your experience, Jim, how can, because we've been talking about effective followership,
Mhm.
on the flip side, there are poor followership, right? So how can poor followership harm a company culture or the business performance?
Well, I think they struggle. I've seen it time and time again, and I've seen it in my own company. When I was not a very effective leader starting out building teams 15 years ago, I made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned, through those mistakes. And what I'm hoping that people can do is like elevate or expedite, maybe is the better word, expedite their success path by understanding some easy principles. Like they can make a difference. But by being an effective follower, you help the organization rise or not.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. You've seen it too. You've probably been part of an organization that didn't have a culture where followership was embraced and people were supported. I look at my team members. When I bring somebody on, I don't hire people. I select them. That's a different mind frame, right? I select people to be on my team, and when I do, I want to make sure that they're equipped to the max to be successful, not just in their work, but in their life, helping them with their personal finance, helping them with life advice. I mean, those are things that I think are extremely important. And we're a small company, and we try to instill those types of values here that we really truly care and love people.
So how are you growing leaders within your organization? You
Yeah.
see, when you were describing how you are supporting your team, how you
Yeah.
are mentoring them, helping them,
Yeah.
I'm impressed, but
Yeah.
I also want to know or hear from you how you are building future leaders because
Yeah.
you said right now maybe you are about 15 people. Let's say you
Yeah.
go grow into 1,500 people. How are you going to transfer those skills across the team?
Yeah, that's an aspiration, man. Well, so I can give you a real personal example. I have a fellow on my team. His name is Dylan Sheldon. Dylan's been with me almost 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I hired him right out of college. He was green, he was green, and he was a person that struck me as somebody who is of high integrity.
Hmm.
Okay. And I kept giving him more responsibility and more responsibility. Today, he is now the vice president of operations for Interaction Media, runs the day-to-day operation for the company. And my hope is that at some point he will be the president of Interaction Media. Okay. And he and I've talked about this, potentially even an owner. But the interesting thing about it is I saw leadership traits in him, like the way he interacted with people. He had a very kind heart, but he was also very firm. He didn't want to take any BS, if you know what I mean. Okay.
Yeah.
But he was also very kind-hearted, very empathetic, and he balanced me very well because some of my strengths are his weaknesses. Some of his weaknesses are my strengths, and vice versa. I hope I got that right. But the point is, I saw the leadership ability. For instance, a very tangible thing. I supported him and sponsored him to become a member of the Rotary Club of Morgantown. Rotary is a civic organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was one of our youngest members coming in, and I sponsored him and paid his dues, and I started watching him. He would have meetings and have coffee with these guys that were 75 years old, and he was going to coffee with these guys. And I'm thinking, man, he's doing it. He's engaging. And the more that he did those types of things, the more respect and the more influence, quote unquote, that he had with our Rotarian family. Okay. Well, fast forward to 2 years ago, he became the youngest president of the Rotary Club of Morgantown, 106 years that
Wow.
we've had this club, youngest president. And
Wow.
led our club for a whole year. He and his wife got to go to the international Rotary international conference in Australia. I sent them, paid for the trip, the whole nine, right? And the coolest thing about that is like he has developed into a leader because number one, he had the propensity for it, he had the ability, he had the heart for it, and I played a small role by just pushing him out there and saying, "Get involved, do it, do it, do it, take charge." And so he's an amazing follower, but he's now a tremendous leader. And that to me is like, wow, that's what it's all about.
Oh, that's so good. You talked about principle, and I like to keep this podcast very practical, right?
Yes,
So I
yes.
want to hear from you. What's maybe one or two practical habits that people can develop so that they can start to become a better follower today?
Mm, mm. I think I've already touched on it, but I'll expand on it. And
Mm,
that is the word curiosity.
Curiosity. Okay.
Being curious.
Mm,
In other words, it could be the simple question like, why did he ask me to do this? And I don't care. If I ask somebody to do something, they say, Jim, if you don't mind, why am I doing this? I would love to have that question. I do get that question, but I love it because then that's the teaching moment. If somebody's just checking the boxes as they go along in their career, they miss the opportunity to learn. So I think that's one of the things. And I think the other thing that I think gets missed a lot, especially in our world today, that I see this a lot. You see it in sports teams, you see it in companies, you see it in marriages, and that is the idea of loyalty,
mm,
staying committed, especially during the difficult times.
mm.
And what do I mean by loyalty? I don't mean like you have to just sell out. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you lock in with a leader that you're following, be loyal to them, help them. They're going to trip and fall. We all do. I
Mm.
know. I certainly do. And it's great to have somebody beside you to say, "Hey, we got you." And so I would say curiosity and loyalty would be two things that I would
Like,
definitely focus on.
thank you very much, Jim, for sharing that. Now, as we are wrapping it, if you could leave our listeners with one takeaway about followership,
Mm.
what would you say?
I would say reflect on your purpose. You know, I think that finding purpose in your work is extremely important. We spend so much time at work, whether it's like I said, a small business, a large company, it could be a nonprofit, whatever you're doing, find purpose in it. And sometimes that's as simple as self-reflection. Maybe it's taking inventory. Maybe it's setting goals. I love, Bola, that you set goals for yourself and the things that you're working on. I'm the same way. But finding that purpose, because when you can do that, you can be an effective follower, you can be a great leader, but most importantly, you'll have a lot of fun in the work that you're doing, and you wake up energized, running to work instead of sludging through it every day.
Yeah. Finally, my listeners, they would like to know more about you, Jim.
Yeah.
So we are now transitioning to my rapid fire questions.
All right, let's do it.
So, Jim, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely a morning person. I get up at 5 a.m. every day, even on Saturdays and Sundays.
Same here. So, what's your most favorable productivity tool?
Productivity tool. I would say I'm very much into technology, and right now this is a crazy one. It's Suno AI. I
Oh,
am I'm a musician, and
uh,
I haven't been able to work in a studio for years, but now I'm creating content, music and content, and sharing it with my people, and it is like an amazing thing. And I could create a song literally in an afternoon or maybe a couple of hours. So
uh,
that is it's kind of a crazy tool, but I am on fire for this digital AI recording studio.
so I'm totally sold on AI. It's changing our world. It's changing our lives. So
Yes,
I'm also leveraging AI whenever I can. So
I
that's
love it.
good. Hey, Jim, one word your team will use to describe you.
Leadership.
Shape. One
That's that
habit.
that that's the thing. What's that?
One habit that keep you grounded.
Coffee.
Coffee. I was going to ask you, are you a coffee person or a tea person? So you already answered that. So that's so good. Finally, Jim, if you weren't an entrepreneur today,
Mm,
what
mm,
would you be doing?
mm. I would be a musician.
Musician. I love that.
Yeah, I'm a drummer, and man, I often thought, if my company didn't work out, I could always get a gig playing drums on a beach somewhere.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you very much, Jim. It's been an exciting time with you. I enjoyed this episode and I wish you all the best in your endeavor.
Me too, Bola. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. You're awesome at what you do, bud.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, sir. All right.